Today I want to talk about Metroid and the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct upcoming on April 2nd, because I do think that Metroid, it's now clear this franchise will show up at this presentation, because while many of us were expecting Nintendo to hold some kind of February Nintendo Direct like they historically have literally every year in the Nintendo Switch generation, we had a February Direct of some sort. Well, that did not happen this year, and clearly we have the already confirmation of the Switch 2 Direct, and Metroid needs more info because we learned about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond at the June 2024 Nintendo Switch Direct and got it confirmed as a 2025 title, and we have not seen any other footage or information of this game since then. We also interestingly have, over the summertime this year, a Metroid Prime trilogy art collector book being marketed and sold, and we have no confirmation that Nintendo is doing anything right now with Prime 2 or 3 Remastered ahead of Prime 4's launch. So I want to unpack all of the possible outcomes for Metroid showing up in some capacity at this Nintendo Switch 2 Focus Direct, including the possibility of even getting a glimpse at something like the next 2D Metroid game that I do believe Nintendo will be delivering sometime within the next year or two. So we're going to unpack all of these details. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And we have to first kick it off with the game that makes the most sense on paper to be there, and the one that I do think we will see an update on, and that is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And I personally believe that Nintendo will be marketing this game as a cross-generational title, because while we've talked about the high likelihood of Mario Kart being the big launch title for Nintendo Switch 2, that is a multiplayer focused launch title, and Nintendo historically has at least a couple first-party pieces of software on the launch day of their consoles, and I believe that Metroid could fit the build for the perfect single-player focused adventure game that they also want to throw out there and give it an amazing opportunity to sell and elevate to new heights from a sales perspective, and kind of have its Breath of the Wild moment, if you will, probably on a smaller scale, but nonetheless get to new heights that Metroid's never seen before. And I think that you can do that with making it the single player focused launch game alongside of Nintendo Switch 2 hardware launch. And what's exciting about that idea is the fact that we may see some upgraded visuals compared to what we saw so far, because I don't believe that the gameplay that we saw in that initial Nintendo Switch trailer was something that was running on Switch 2 secretly behind the scenes. I mean, it had a Nintendo Switch logo on the end of it. I think that we are potentially going to get something like a more enhanced lighting system with things like ray reconstruction that we know the Nintendo Switch 2 to have from the leaked specs, from shipping manifests and things that have floated around out there. And who knows if this game was originally built with the Nintendo Switch 1 in mind, but it takes advantage of Nintendo Switch 2. Could we have something like a even higher refresh rate than 60 FPS? Could we be talking about something like 120 FPS for a Nintendo Switch 2 game? Probably not. I'm not holding my breath for it, but could we potentially see something like that? Yes, it's a possibility. And not to mention the fact that we know for certain at this point that both the Joy-Cons that detach from the console have an optical mouse sensor on the bottom of them, or the sides of them rather, and when you flip them sideways, it will be used as some kind of mouse functionality. We saw that teased from Nintendo in the first look trailer, and we also have a number of different patents legitimately outlining exactly how you would hold those controllers as mice. So I do think that Nintendo might want to market some kind of first-person shooter like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond to show off the functionality of those Joy-Con, because yeah, you could actually point, aim, click, and move around as Samus with that brand new controller gimmick that Nintendo is no doubt going with this time around in this console generation. So I personally think that there's a high likelihood that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is here with a exact launch date confirmed, hopefully launching alongside of the Nintendo Switch 2 day and date. And I think Nintendo might do that Breath of the Wild and or Twilight Princess type of strategy, where they actually put out a version for the current generation console and the new one simultaneously on the same day, and there's just going to be some noticeable quality upgrades for the next generation version of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and maybe it gets sold at $70 on the Switch 2, but $60 on the current family of Switch systems. This is a possibility. But besides that, as mentioned earlier in the video, we also have a art book that's being marketed for Metroid Prime Trilogy. A lot of deep dive look at the art and the world of how those games were created, and it's something that's interesting because while it does not confirm Prime 2 and 3 Remastered Remastered coming over, from a logic-based perspective, you would really just think that Nintendo's not going to put out a game with a 4 in the title when you have it being called Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and you were missing Prime 2 Echoes and Prime 3 Corruption, but you gave us Prime 1 Remastered on Nintendo Switch. So my theory is that while I do not believe we will see many original Nintendo Switch games marketed at this event, I do think that the possibility of, at the end of the Prime 4 trailer, getting a quick snippet of Prime 2 and 3 and just saying that an HD collection is headed to Nintendo Switch and you can pick it up on the eShop today. It's a shadow drop game announcement and there's a physical edition coming a month or two after, just like we saw Nintendo do for Metroid Prime 1 Remastered and for the Pikmin 1 and 2 collection. I think Nintendo puts these out as kind of an afterthought, no marketing buildup or any of that, but here they're playable for the hardcore Metroid fans that want to have these things maxed out and 100% run before Metroid Prime 4 Beyond comes out. Here you go, you can play them, and it's probably going to line up relatively close to when that art book will be launching over the summertime, which is also when we're expecting the Nintendo Switch 2 to potentially launch. Although I will say, I personally think that Shadow Drop makes the most sense for the next Prime 2 and 3 remasters. So maybe we actually do just, see them launch right then and there on April 2nd, which would be obviously a great thing to happen, and I certainly hope that it does. And lastly, I want to talk about the possibility of 2D Metroid, and while I think it's a long shot to also see something in the 2D Metroid series shown off at this direct presentation, I do think that there is a stretch of a shot, and the reason I say that, timeline-wise, an insider by the name of Nash Weedle, who I'm not entirely convinced on their track record, but they have a history with Metroid specifically, where they leaked the timeline of when Metroid Dread would be shown off or launched loosely in 2021, and they also got literally the name right, which is still, you could say, yes, we knew about Dread being in the name of a 2D Metroid game from the 3DS that it was originally planned for, that then got canceled. So maybe you could say, since that name was out there, it's an easy guess, but that and the timing of it actually both hitting, maybe they have an inside source at Mercury Steam, and that's actually where this particular claim is kind of coming from. And they basically said that in 2025 we should learn something about the next 2D Metroid, and there is that possibility that Nintendo is working with Mercury Steam once again for a brand new installment in the 2D Metroid franchise. And I think that while Dread didn't sell like hotcakes or anything like that, it technically is the most successful Metroid game to date from a sales perspective, and I think Nintendo may want to follow that up because they're probably relatively low budget projects for the kind of return that they get from fans and things. So yeah, there's some level of hope in my mind that 2D Metroid shows up at this event, although that is the least likely in my opinion compared to all of the other options we talked through. But the ME mechanic and everything they did in Dread to really make you feel like that panic at certain times, make you feel excited to explore, fight different bosses, get upgrades, and progress as you go through the game. I mean, they pulled it off to the highest standard of what a Metroidvania game is, and I think that they can follow it up with maybe Metroid 6 in the story arc, or maybe it's just something entirely new in the 2D Metroid series. But I do want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. What, if any, Metroid content you think we may see at this Nintendo Switch 2 Focus Direct? And are your hopes high for something like Prime 4 Beyond being there and being confirmed to have a Switch 2 version also? And do you buy into the theory that maybe it's also the single player focused launch game for Nintendo Switch 2? Or do you think that Nintendo will likely not go that route for Metroid Prime 4, and we're just going to learn about the launch date later on, maybe over the summer or something like that, and it's saved for a little bit later in the year as a Switch 1 title only, and we can only play it via backwards compatibility? And what do you think of the likelihood of Prime 2 and 3 Remastered? Are they a thing, or they're not showing up at all? Do you want another 2D Metroid installment like I do, or do you think Nintendo will maybe eventually do that, but not anytime soon? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.